Anthony Chan joins me now. He is the former chief economist at JPMorgan Chase. So, Anthony, let's start with the semiconductors. In your opinion, how serious is the global shortage in the semiconductor supply chain, and how much will this executive order actually accomplish?
Well, remember, this is a step in the direction of rectifying the situation. The global chip shortage is real. Ford Motors, for example, is already talking about having to cut as much as 20% of their production in the first calendar quarter. Globally, as many as 1 million autos will not be produced this year because of the global chip shortage. But the thing to keep in mind and to keep the bigger perspective is that this is as much of a problem for China as it is for the United States. Remember that China needs more chips, and so does the United States. So I think that when we talk about supply chains, diversification, I think, is important and increased production. Just like if you invested a portfolio, you want to diversify. No problem and no reason why not to diversify when it comes to global supply chains. And more importantly, we know that we cannot exist without China, and China cannot exist without us. They're the two largest economies in the world. We need greater cooperation. We should not take this as a form of a trade war. This is a form, what's happening now is a reaction to the fact that we are not producing enough products to support each country's GDP.
No, I want you to expand on that, Anthony, because it's been said that this executive order signed was not a China executive order per se, but they are intertwined. So where do you begin, and how does the U.S. find balance as this new administration tries to make its way with China?
Well, I'm hoping that part of the executive order will be to negotiate with countries like China to secure those supply chains a little bit better, to get some agreements to ensure that those supply chains are not interrupted by special circumstances. So you can do that, but diversifying those supply chains is good for the United States. It's also good for China. The reason why many people say that China is not mentioned, but in fact is the country, is because the reality is that many of the supply chains extend to China, and there's no diversification on the part of the United States. And when they cannot get those products or enough products from China, we saw that with the PPE, we're seeing that with other products, then we have problems. Another problem that's not being discussed here is that the whole world, including the United States, has moved towards just-in-time inventory. We realize that that is not the way to go because you have these type of emergencies. So you're going to need to have some sort of a cushion. Some people will call it just-in-case inventory. I call it inventory with a cushion, which means that it's not efficient. Perhaps it's going to cost us a little bit more to produce, but it will lead to less of these disruptive periods as we're experiencing today, where many companies, manufacturers, and certainly the automakers are telling you that they're having significant problems in producing autos. And it's not just the United States. You're seeing that problem globally.
And Anthony, we have about 30 seconds left, but it's not just semiconductors, it's all sorts of supply chain issues. As we heard Biden say, it was PPE rather, toilet paper, we're looking at food, we're looking at pharmaceuticals. So where do you begin? Did this problem start as a result of the pandemic? Is it political? Where did it begin? And I know you don't have a lot of time, but how do you address this big issue?
I think this problem was intensified during the pandemic because obviously there were supply chain disruptions. And when that happened, all these weak links that we have with the supply chain were exposed. The reality is these problems were always there. If you depend on one country, whether it's us depending on China or China depending only on the United States, something goes wrong, the supply chain is going to be disrupted. So for any country out there, the US, China, Europe, any other country, not diversifying your supply chains is a mistake, and not carrying enough inventory is a mistake. And I think that this executive order is a step in the direction of trying to rectify that situation. But just like we have to fix that situation, so does China, and so do a lot of the European countries too.
All right, good advice. Anthony Chan, thank you so much for joining us from New York.
My pleasure.